Hi, did you miss me? Welcome back to Fulltime. I am Tamerra Griffin, and this week we're talking about Sophia Wilson, who we now know will be returning to the Portland Thorns. Raise your hand if you were a little bit surprised by that. I mean, Denver Summit is right there, and she's a Colorado native. Anyway, don't worry, we will be breaking down every aspect of this contract. I know you guys thought, honestly, so did we, that Meg and I were not going to be on the pod together again for a while, but she just happened to get an exclusive interview with Sophia ahead of this announcement. So we're going to bring her back to get the tea on that conversation, what this contract means, both for Sophia, the Thorns, and the NWSL, especially as the league is still up to its neck in negotiations with Trinity Rodman and her future as a free agent. Lots to discuss. I hope everyone is in their respective areas of the world, either staying warm or maybe even staying cool. I myself was just in South Florida for a couple of weeks covering World Sevens and then recovering from World Sevens in Art Basel, and you definitely need to stay cool there. But it's been a crazy year, and it's not over. There's still so much to be done on the Trinity Rodman front. And as always, we've got you covered. So make sure that you are subscribed to this podcast, which we also post on YouTube, at TA Fulltime on Instagram and TikTok. We're always posting great content there. I personally am a fan of the Polaroids that we all took and recently posted on our Instagram page from NWSL Championship weekend. There's always good stuff everywhere you scroll. So make sure that you're following us. And of course, if you prefer a slower form of communication, send us an email, fulltime@theathletic.com. We're always checking all of these inboxes. And as always, we love to hear from you. All right, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, my conversation with Meg about her conversation with Sophia Wilson, who is going to be a Thorn still in 2026. All right. I know we did an episode not too long ago that supposedly was going to be the last of the calendar year and for a while for my co-host Meg Linehan and I. But we're back because if you've been paying attention, things have been a little crazy, which we're going to get into a little bit in addition to some other big news. But Meg, how are you doing?
I'm on vacation right now.
Okay.
So,
love that for you.
yeah, you know, it's
And you're
the
also
time.
here.
And I'm also here. So many things can be true all at the same time. But yeah, I mean, generally, you know, I at least kind of had the morning off. Obviously, I'm back in to talk all things Sophia Wilson. So that story going out Wednesday morning has kept me around a little bit longer.
Yeah, in addition to a couple of other things.
Yeah.
I feel like this is actually a good point to note for people who are curious about what our jobs are like. I feel like there's almost always a little asterisk next to our vacation time because we are beholden to the news. And Sophia Wilson exercising her player contract with the Portland Thorns is major news. And Meg, you were able to have an exclusive interview with her ahead of the announcement. What were some of the things that stood out from you from that conversation? Everyone should read the piece, by the way, at The Athletic. It's really good.
Thank you. It's such an interesting time, too, because they did a very small round table when Sophia Wilson actually signed this contract, which she has now exercised the single option year for. And it's such an interesting thing to go back and read that piece and then have this conversation because I think a lot of the same themes come through because Sophia Wilson hasn't fundamentally changed as a person, right? Whatever she was going through in 2024 is still going to apply for the 2026 season. There's just now this whole story around her coming back from her pregnancy and having her daughter with her at the team. But it is really interesting just in terms of how much the league and the team have changed since she's been gone. So I think she was stressing so much, Portland is home, it's where I'm comfortable, that's specifically what I need, and no one is going to know what I need better than me, right? It's the same kind of thing of 2024, I think she was already anticipating this criticism of, well, why aren't you going to Europe, right? If you want to be the best, why aren't you going to Europe? And she's like, I like where I am. I like Portland. I like the NWSL. It suits me. I'm learning. It's what's going to work for me. And so there was a lot of that same stuff happening in this conversation this time around, too.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I admittedly was someone who years ago was sort of getting ready to board the Sophia Wilson, even back when she was Sophia Smith before her marriage, should maybe consider going to Europe. But even that statement means it hits totally differently now,
Right.
because that was before Alyssa Thompson went to Chelsea. That was before the Trinity Rodman conversation. The Thorns, of course, have changed pretty drastically, as you noted in your piece. When Sophia played her last game, she was also playing in a game in which we said goodbye to Christine Sinclair, Becky Sauerbrunn, Megan Klingenberg.
Yep.
What can you tell us about her, sort of where she is mentally in terms of what her return means and her place within the team and in Portland?
Yeah, I think, obviously coming back from anything, right? Whether it's injury, whether it's pregnancy, whether it could even be mental health, right? Every player knows, okay, I've got to come back and I've got to figure out where my spot is on this team and I have to earn my way back in. But at the same time now, Sophia Wilson has actually got the second most seniority on Portland, right?
Crazy.
Which is, it's so funny because it feels like yesterday,
Still remember when
right?
she got drafted.
Exactly. Like, I was like, oh man, it has really been almost 6 years. Okay, all right, cool, great. Everybody's old now. Fantastic.
Dissociation initiated.
Yeah, it's such a time. But I think there is this sense of, she knows that she has to balance that seniority, right? Bella Bixby is the one player that's been there a single season longer than she has. Morgan Weaver is also going to be coming back from a year off due to injury. Those are the three most senior players on this team. Sam Coffey came in a year later and has obviously stepped up as captain. But there is this sense of, Sophia Wilson has kind of been through it all with the Thorns, right? Like post abuse scandal, a number of coaching changes. I mean, this is about to be her fifth head coach with the Thorns since 2020, right? And so I think even just having gone through this pattern a few times, I think she knows what it is to be a Thorn. And also, it's not going to look exactly like the team that she left in 2024 because, again, Sink, Becky, Kling, like these legends of the game are all retired now. And still, like, to be fair, hanging around, I think, to some extent. But there's a chance for her to step in and say, okay, I'm now a leader on this team. And I'll be very curious because that was one of the things that, then general manager Karina LeBlanc was talking about of knowing that she was going to have to eventually step into this role. And Sophia Wilson is, I would say, quiet in a lot of ways, right? And very intense, like a true competitor. But I don't think she's
summed her up perfectly.
Exactly. But I don't think, I think Sam Coffey has stepped up when it comes to the leadership speeches. But Sophia Wilson, I think, can add, it's never going to be a single leader on any team. So it's just how does she come back in and have both all of this fresh energy that she talked about having while also having this real history with the team that not a lot of other players can say that they have.
It felt really telling to hear how much she emphasized her desire to continue playing, not just in Portland, but specifically at Providence Park, in front of the Riveters, in front of the fans, wanting to build on that relationship. And I think if anyone has been following Sophia Wilson's career closely, she's a cozy girl. She likes to be comfortable. She knows what she needs, which I think as a young player is so important to know what you need because as she also mentioned, there is always going to be opinions on what she should do, where she should go. Meg, I want to talk about the specificity of her contract. But before we get there, I think, especially given what's going on right now in the league, it's worth putting this contract in the context of the league right now. And its deep struggle to retain its top talent. I first, when I learned the news, was imagining the sort of league front office taking this huge sigh of relief. I was very surprised in a way, though, because I was thinking that the Denver question was going to linger a little bit longer, at least. But it felt pretty certain that she was going to stay in the league. But it's still, there's something about knowing this for sure, considering the departure of Alyssa Thompson, considering the question mark that's hanging over Trinity Rodman, that feels significant heading into 2026, right?
Yeah, I phrased it in a text to a friend as like, well, the NWSL just got a real break, right? Totally. Like they get to have this star player back, right? And I think, you and I over the past, year, honestly, right? Like since the 2024 Olympics, there's always been that question of the NWSL being able to have all of Triple Espresso playing in the league at the same time, right? And it's always been sort of just out of reach. And so now I think that possibility is obviously, Sophia Wilson wasn't the question. She still isn't the question.
Right.
But it does maybe feel like, okay, the league is inching closer to that happening in 2026, right? Assuming everything goes as well as it possibly can with Trinity Rodman. But I think there is this real sense of, Sophia Wilson has gone on record of, not saying that she never wants to go to Europe, but saying that she doesn't feel like she needs Europe to prove herself, right? And that she has kind of bought into the NWSL as a league, right? While still always wanting to push it to be better. I mean, that was even something that didn't really make the story just because, we talked for a long time, but this sense of there are still ways for this league to improve. She's obviously been watching everything that's been happening, right? Like she has said time and time again, I like to keep my options open, right? I know, yes, I think there is always this sense of I'm going to go back to Portland, right? Like that is what my heart is calling me to do in this moment. But that's not to say that she's not watching Trinity Rodman's contract negotiations, right? Watching how the league is handling this moment, watching what Denver is doing. She talked about how great it is that the NWSL is getting all of this investment coming in. But I think there is the unspoken second part of that is investment is great. And some of that has to come to the players. So
100%. And I'm getting another sort of auntie FC moment of watching this player grow,
right.
The things that are concerning her, and I don't even mean concerning her in a negative way, but the things that are occupying space in her mind now are so different from where they were, even in 2024, certainly when she turned pro. It's really cool. And then to see that it feels like an acceleration, sort of, considering how much the league has changed since she went pro. So to know that she's thinking about these things and paying as close attention, even while becoming a mother, is really impressive. But like I mentioned, I wanted to talk about the contract itself, because I think it can be really easy, considering she's staying with the Thorns, to think that she is re-signing. And
right.
I think it's important to sort of distinguish between that, which that's not what this is. She exercised a player option.
Right.
Because I already saw people in the comments of your story being like, well, why can't we just do this with Trinity? So could you help the people?
Very different situation.
Hold our hands and walk us through it, please, Meg.
Because what's funny, too, is Trinity Rodman actually exercised her player option for 2025. It just went extremely under the radar, I think, because everybody always knew that she was going to take that option year. Whereas for Sophia Wilson, especially again with Denver coming into the league, there was this question of, okay, is she going to hop somewhere else? And this is kind of the nice thing about all of the changes that have come out of the NWSL, where there is more player autonomy, is that options used to be one way. A team could say oh no, we're going to exercise your option. You don't have a choice. Now it's a player option, right? So players get to decide, this last year on my contract, agency. Am I going to stay or not? And so this is exactly, I think, how it should be working. But Sophia Wilson signed this contract originally in 2024 for the 2024 and 2025 seasons with a player option for 2026. So it is now, I think, her next offseason is the Trinity Rodman question, right? Of how does she get retained in the NWSL? Will Denver finally make a real play for her? How is Portland going to have to step up? But it honestly doesn't surprise me. And I still, I think that $1 million figure is probably in the right ballpark. But I think, when she signed this deal in 2024, she was already testing the boundaries of the market, right? All of them are. But Sophia Wilson, even by 2024, you think about that 2022 season that she had with Portland, right?
Massive.
And even though 2023 kind of went sideways because of injury post-World Cup, winning a championship, being MVP, championship MVP, the NWSL still shows that shrug celebration from the 2022 championship in ads. So in 2024, as she's negotiating for that contract, I guess tail into 23 into 24, she's already got the ability to kind of push the boundaries. And we saw that with Trinity too, even when she signed her deal back in 2022, right? That was the 3+1 option for 1.1 million for a 19-year-old, right? So all of these players have already figured out how to push the bounds of salary, but because Trinity is now kind of on this next wave of figuring out how far the NWSL can be pushed, that's why these aren't one-to-one comparisons. But Sophia Wilson is paying attention for next offseason, not this one.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about how one of the things that sort of distinguishes these two paths is also timing. It's sort of like Sophia negotiated a lot of these things ahead of not ahead of time necessarily, but before a lot of the changes took place. So she's just sort of riding the momentum that she created a couple years ago.
Well, they get to like kind of leapfrog each other, right? Like Trinity Rodman is looking at what Sophia Wilson negotiated in 2024 and going, okay, how do I up that, right? And so there's actually some mutual, like, they're helping each other out in these contract negotiations of now Sophia gets to watch Trinity and say, okay, you know, now 2026 is the season where she gets to prove herself and her value all over again, right? Because I think it really benefits her to stay in Portland, exercise that option, get her feet back under her, and then say, okay, if I want to, I can go out and test the market because Trinity has now set this new bar. So they're actually, I think, because they're on these opposite essentially like performance review cycles.
Yeah.
They're going to help each other.
For each other.
Exactly.
You did this for her, so what about me?
It's actually I think it's really cool, and it helps push the NWSL in a way that the NWSL needs to be pushed.
Agreed. Let's talk quickly about the sporting side, because I did find it interesting how, on the one hand, I completely understand the importance of going back to a familiar place where you already feel comfortable after taking so much time off, after having a kid, while also recognizing that the team that you come back to, as we talked about from a player side, is going to be very different, but they also don't have a full-time coach right now.
Right.
So this sort of ties into a listener question we got from Zach for us. Are there any available or rumored top-tier international coaches? I do think it's interesting, Zach, that you specifically went international off the bat.
Right? I mean, that's kind of the trend, though.
Well, that's true. I haven't thought about it too much. Sarah Loudon, of course, is the active interim after Rob Gale was dismissed. The Thorns placed third at the end of the regular season, which, outside of Thorns fans, let's be honest, not too many saw it coming.
I think it's an overperforming, right? Like, I think, but also you think about the rise of Olivia Moultrie, right? Like, we've been very pro Olivia Moultrie. Sam Coffey, again, is the engine of that team. They've gone out and kind of made some moves. It's a super young team.
Especially in the attack.
Right. So I think, bringing Sophia Wilson back is immediately going to solve a lot of things for them. Also, Morgan Weaver, to that same point. The interesting thing, too, is I think there's actually a candidate maybe within the NWSL, and I feel like I just keep bringing this name up every time, but Angela Salem has been, right, an assistant coach, but is a former Thorn, right, might fit right into that, like, being a leader who has been in Portland, who can take the team to the next level. I mean, I kind of kept expecting her to step into that Bay role at some point, and then it didn't happen, but, you know, if I'm Portland, if Angela Salem has interest in becoming a head coach, I feel like that's a call that you have to make. But from an international point of view, I mean, this is just, I guess, the question of like who's available and like, I feel like I'm never tapped into that market of who's looking for a job, who's poachable, whatever it is. But there's not necessarily a name that really jumps out to me right at the moment, right?
Yeah, I mean, just for the sake of being spicy, Arsenal fans, cover your ears. But our colleagues did write a deeply intriguing piece about some of the discord that's been happening at Arsenal this season. It's almost certainly way too soon to make that call about Renee Schlegers' future with that team, but I wouldn't not want to see that. I think that I could see her working well, not only with Sophia, but with some of those other younger players who have shown clearly an upside. I'm really excited to see the returns of some of those younger players like Kaya Hanks, who got injured with a season-ending injury this season, but showed so much promise. I have to think a little bit more from an international scope, but I also agree with you that I think from a club perspective, with Thorns having new ownership, it would be quite a statement for them to select their next head coach from within the NWSL, or at least someone who's currently based in the U.S. It's not only about this, but I do think about the Thorns as this sort of standard bearer and like as a club, sort of the face of the NWSL in terms of how they've constructed themselves, their identity. I honestly don't have any names that have come to mind yet, though.
Yeah, it's tough. And I did talk to Jeff Algus, who's the general manager and president of or soccer operations. And I will say, like, the coaching updates I asked, right? I was like, of course I have to ask. There's not necessarily like a huge amount of specifics. Like, there's not, I think the team also, when you think about the past couple of head coaches, right? Mike Norris, Rob Gale. Rob Gale was the interim after Mike Norris got kind of his role changed and elevated, honestly. So I think there is this sense of we have to go outside of the organization, right? Because I think the approach previously has not necessarily worked for the team. Portland should be one of those teams that has, the DNA and the cachet, right, to go out and get whatever name they want. So I do think the pressure is probably on, that they feel like there needs to be a statement higher at this point. But I also think, you think about the success of Bev Yanez, right, in Louisville. Like, I do think finding a former player that could potentially take your team to the heights that Portland expects, like, that to me feels like a real recipe for success. But I also just wonder if there is this pressure of, like, we have to get a name because we're Portland, and you look at kind of the last
Sophia
couple
staying.
Exactly. And Sophia immediately maybe changes the profile of who might be looking at it. So it's going to be really interesting to see what they do. But I do think Portland has managed to kind of stay under the radar in this process, which, to be fair, I think is always a benefit for a team of trying to figure out what direction they want to go in.
I think so too. And admittedly, one of the reasons I haven't had much time to think about it is because we have been so consumed. I mean, not me literally recently, because I've been on vacation.
Yeah, me literally.
You literally.
Yeah.
I was thinking to myself, I feel like Salem, through like osmosis, when he's able to speak, is going to be able to just like cite sections of the CBA.
Yeah, probably. Probably. Every time I talk to our editor, Emily, and I'm just like, she's asking me a question, I'm like, oh, that's in section 360. Right. And I'm like, I don't love this for me, I have to say. Like,
it's a flex.
Yeah, but is it a good one? Night. I don't know. I don't know.
So. I think so. Well, before we let you go, Meg, I feel like to call it an update is promising way too much when it comes to Trinity Rodman's free agency and all that's going on in the NWSL, with the NWSL Players Association, with the Spirit. But where do things stand at the moment? And I do think stand is probably very accurate, because we're still standing here, not moving much.
Right. I do think we're kind of in a holding pattern. In theory, the league has approved this rule change. The problem is that if a rule change happens with the salary cap, the Players Association must be consulted. And I think that's currently where the sticking point is. And then the other part that I think we haven't really talked about on the show is the fact that we now have Congress paying attention to Trinity Rodman's contract and the grievance procedure, and the fact that, to be fair, there's only so much that these Congress people who are sending open letters to Jessica Berman can do. Sometimes it's really more a gesture than anything. But what I do think is interesting is that they're not wrong in saying that they have oversight power because of federal labor laws. And the fact that they said that there are significant oversight concerns over how this is played out, it's just at least an additional level of pressure on the league right at the moment, and honestly an additional PR blunder on the league's point of view. Optics alone. And so, right at the moment, I think currently the sticking point is this rule change, because also the rule change is no guarantee that Trinity Rodman is going to sign a new contract. Do I think it will probably open the door to it? Yes. But to be fair, I still think that there's a real question of, Trinity Rodman has not explicitly come out and said, like, I want to stay in Washington, but that's what her agent has said, etc. Like, everybody thinks Trinity wants to stay in Washington. How do you get past the thing of, this is how the league is treating your contract negotiation? Is this a league I want to stay in beyond? Is this a team and players that I want to continue to play with? And that's the part where I'm just kind of like, yes, this is going to set precedent again, no matter what. But a lot of this, I think, is going to stick in top players' heads as they, Sophia Wilson, whoever it is, as they go through this process of, if this has become this public, this messy, this combative, elongate, right? What is my next contract negotiation going to look like? And so it's a dangerous game to play. Right at the moment, that game is not near ending. It's going to be deeply curious for me how this plays out over. I've got vacation and parental leave planned out. We'll see how much that sticks. But there is this sense of, I think everybody is thinking that there will be some sort of resolution, hopefully before the end of the year, because that has always been the mission, is before the end of the year. But we're recording this Wednesday, December 17th. And there's still, the path to that resolution is still not clear. And
it feels potentially still quite long. I mean,
I think once if the rule change goes through, the challenge is now the grievance, right? And if the grievance and a new contract can happen at the same time, which, to be fair, I think they could. But it's a very interesting time right at the moment. And we don't know if the grievance is going to result in arbitration, what kind of timeline that would be. But, I think there's also the possibility that if it doesn't come together, Rodman's representation could always look for like a short-term deal, the same way some of the other U.S. players have not necessarily opted into longer contracts, but do a quick 6 months in Europe, come back into something else. But it is, I don't know, it's just been the strangest contract negotiations I've ever covered in the NWSL, and that's really saying something just based on the old days again of U.S. soccer really with allocation being able to manipulate things.
Yeah, I find myself thinking about something that I think a lot of us can relate to, which is you get an offer from a new job and then you start the negotiation process, and if you have the misfortune of having anything even remotely like this, where there's a lot of back and forth, it can be so stressful. And it's hard to not confront those questions of like, if it's already this hard now, like, what do I need to be preparing myself for when I'm actually in it? And obviously Trinity has been playing in the NWSL, but she's entering a new phase of her career. She's going to be playing on a new contract. And like you said, not only is everyone else watching and paying attention to what's happening, but she's taking stock of it too. So I mean, it behooves everyone to get this signed, sealed, delivered as soon as possible. But you can rest assured that we will be keeping on top of all of the news, even after Meg blessedly gets to go on break. Yeah. Meg, what are you looking forward to? Let's end on a high note.
Hopefully I have yet to go skiing this year. I think we're going to try to figure out a way for me to go skiing at some point soon. But yeah, I think just, spending time with Salem. Vermont Green will be in the Open Cup again in the spring in March. So it's going to be some nice chilly. Last Open Cup that they were in, we had a snow game. So
love it.
Should be interesting. But I think just I won't miss looking at my phone all the time, stressed out with what's going to be on my phone. So
my wrist has been hurting lately. I don't know about you, which is not a good sign.
My wrist is hurting from carrying around a 14-pound baby. So it's a different kind of it's a different kind of stress.
Well, as always, Meg, we appreciate your fastidious, detail-oriented coverage, and we wish you a restful, restorative, snow-filled, all of the things break. This is going to, for real, be the last time we are on the mic with each other this year and for many months to follow.
Yeah, well, you never know for next year. We're going to find out.
That's true. I'm trying to speak it into existence.
I know. But who knows? But thank you for all the well wishes. It's going to be so weird not doing this every week, I have to say. I know I said this last time, but it's going to be so strange not talking with you every week.
I know. So. I'm just going to keep a running list of notes of things that we'll have to process when you get back. But thank you, as always, for sharing your insight. All right. Lots to digest from that Sophia Wilson news. As always, we're grateful to Meg for her coverage. And that's our show. So when the ball drops and you're clinking your champagne or your sparkling apple juice, just know that you're also toasting the beginning of a transfer window that is guaranteed to be nuts. All the more reason to make sure that you're following us on our socials. Once again, at TA Fulltime on Instagram and TikTok. You can watch our episodes on YouTube. We are, and trying to be, everywhere that you guys are so that we can make sure that you stay informed because, like I said, this offseason is not going to slow down much. The only difference is that we're not going to be watching as many games. And even then, only NWSL games because they're still going off in Europe. We just finished a crazy round of Champions League group stage games. But we love hearing from you, so make sure that you're sliding into our DMs with your thoughts, questions, concerns, sending us emails, as I mentioned, fulltime@theathletic.com. And I personally love an in-person meetup. Shout out to Alyssa that I saw recently last weekend in San Francisco, who said that she is a big fan of the show. I love when people come up in person and say hi. It feels very analog, very vintage, and it's great to see humans face to face. As always, The Athletic and Yahoo Sports have partnered to deliver the very best coverage of women's sports, which you can find at the Women's Sports Hub. Women's college basketball is back. Lots to pay attention to. sports.yahoo.com/women-sports. As always, we put the link to that in the bio. I'm Tamerra Griffin. You already know that I'm going to be off somewhere steaming after my workout, staying warm, staying hydrated, keeping the pores open and moisturized. I'm not going to be posting that on Instagram, but you can find me on Instagram posting other more appropriate stuff that you probably are going to be more interested in anyway. Everyone wish Meg a happy break, happy holiday. We're going to miss her, but we're also happy that she gets to rest, right? And of course, this podcast is not possible without our producer, Theo Lloyd Hughes, king of the transition, video producer Leah Griffin, who is off, hopefully sipping something nice in the sun on vacation, and our executive producer, Emily Olson. Thanks as always for listening, and we'll see you soon.